This November, elections will be going across the country, including for statewide offices, especially in the state of Idaho, where candidate Dorothy Moon, a member of the state legislature, will be running, or is running rather, for Secretary of State. And joining us today to discuss that campaign is Dorothy Moon herself. Dorothy Moon, thank you so much for joining us today here at the New American.
Oh, thank you, Christian. I'm excited. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too as well. It's been a while. So you are now in the race for Secretary of State, running as, I believe, the only conservative candidate. Can you tell us a bit about the importance of that race in the state of Idaho and why you've chosen to run in this election?
Well, I think what's really important is after the 2020 election where we lost President Trump, a lot of people in this state were very upset. The fact that Idaho had the highest turnout for Trump, almost 65%, higher than any other state in the union. People were very upset, couldn't believe what had happened. And as a result of that loss in November, the Texas lawsuit came about to support having these other states that just now disenfranchised every other state in the union, these battleground states, to be challenged for their election procedures. Our governor would not sign on to the Texas lawsuit. Many people emailed and called. I've never received more correspondence from constituents as I have on that one issue. Our Lieutenant Governor, McGeehan, did an amicus brief where 40 legislators signed on, of which I was one. And so we were the cheerleaders on the sideline. We weren't the football players on the field, but we definitely did support that endeavor. After we filed on a Thursday, the next day, Friday, the Supreme Court threw the case out. I think that the citizens of this state wanted to know that we were hearing them, and we wanted to also recognize that we did not feel that these states, these battleground states, that more or less ended it for our champion in the White House, that we weren't going to let it stand, and that we had to be a united front against this sort of issue and bring light to it.
You know, you've been in the legislature for several years, being a champion of the Constitution, defending it from potential revision through a convention of states, constitutional convention. You've also been a champion for property rights, and of course now you have a bill in the legislature to House Bill 761, an election integrity reform bill, which hopefully by the time that this video is out, perhaps it will have passed even the state Senate. But why leave the State House of Representatives to run for Secretary of State?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're a very big state. Geographically, we have a lot of square miles, but we have 1.8 million people. When I first moved here in 1994, there was 1 million people. So it's exploded greatly with the Western states, refugees moving here to more conservative location. But this bill, the reason why I'm running for Secretary of State and not staying in the legislature is because of the fact that we've redistricted because of the census. And a lot of our rural areas have now been drawn to be incorporated into the more urbanized areas. So my district, I lost 2 of my 5 counties, and now I've been brought south to a more urbanized area of Elmore County. And there's 27,000 people in that one county compared to the 27,000 left in my 3 other counties. Could I have stayed there? Yes. But rural Idaho does have a big voice, or did have a big voice with a lot of us, and they need to continue with that voice to protect their multiple use in our forested lands, which is 63% of this state. So we have a lot of people who log and graze and mine. And we need to be able to have a voice there. And I can serve better as Secretary of State because this position serves on the Idaho land of commissioners, which actually address issues on the endowment lands, which funds our schools. That's our statewide lands. And then we have the federal lands, which we can now tap into by managing timber sales through the Good Neighbor Authority. This is a program I've seen come into the state where rural Idaho can actually make funds off of timber sales within their county. So to me, this is a game changer. This is something that really needs to be expanded in the state to where we can reduce the fuel loads, the fires, the unhealthy air that our citizens are inhaling every summer because of these humongous forest fires that keep ravaging through all of our western states. So I'm hopeful that our resources can economically, not just on state lands, but also on federal lands, benefit the citizens of Idaho.
So essentially, if you win the race for Secretary of State, you would end up being a voice for rural Idaho in that office and having more influence in that capacity than you would had you remained in the legislature.
Yes, that's the truth. Yes.
Uh, can you tell us a bit about your opponents that you're running against? Are they a serious threat to your campaign? Where do they stand on various issues here, including even the election reform issues and election integrity bills?
The biggest threat is the Ada County Clerk, Phil McGrain. He's been in the clerk's office, I believe, for 8 years. He he doesn't have a voting record, but he did take Zuckerberg funding in October of 2020 prior to the national election. And he took to the tune of almost $500,000, $496,000. As far as trying to find out what that money was spent on has been very difficult. They're kind of nebulous categories of education or PPE or, those are the kind of things that you can find the money was spent on, but you can't get down to the brass tacks of what the line items are. So he's taken Zuckerberg money, and he also encouraged 20 other of our 44 counties to do the same. Now, they didn't get the same $500,000 that he received. However, the other counties received between $5,000 to $12,000. This was done unilaterally. The Secretary of State's office knew nothing about this. And as a result of that, a bill was passed the next year that does not allow any county clerk to take funds from any corporation or individual that might influence an election. So that's my number one opponent. The establishment, they're supporting him. And the other one is a senator from up north, Mary Souza, who has been in 8 years. And she actually is kind of guilty of having ties to Zuckerberg as well. In 2020, a bill that would allow Mark Zuckerberg to build a metadata center here in Idaho. She voted for it. I voted against it. One, I don't want his influence in the state, and I didn't want like the idea of millions of dollars being given to him as tax incentives. So both of them have their fingers tied in a little bit with Zuckerberg, and I think that says a lot. As far as voting, I'm the only conservative in the race compared to my Senate opponent. On the American Conservative Union, I have a lifetime score of 98%. I vote for less government and personal responsibility and fiscal accountability in every vote that I make. So I think I am the only conservative choice in this race. And I think that bodes well for a lot of the folks that have moved here. These refugees from California, Washington, and Oregon, they've left their states because of what's happened to them under these socialistic regimes that they have there. And these people are good Christian conservatives. And I've never seen a movement, a grassroots movement around the state as I have since the Tea Party. Younger people are involved because of the masking of their kids or possible forced vaccinations. Younger people are involved like I have never seen before. Currently, I've got palm cards going out door to door all around the state from groups of people who do not like the direction, this globalist agenda that's being put forth by the current administration in our capital.
Absolutely, and let's talk a bit about the bill that that's already passed in the Idaho House, the House Bill 761. What are some of the things that this bill would do if it's enacted into law?
Oh, this is a great bill, and it addresses a lot of the concerns. So it was a pretty heavy lift. The as far as identification goes, only government state ID. We have our state ID cards if you don't drive, driver's license, passport, military ID, tribal ID. We have a lot of different tribes here in the state, as well as concealed carry, because they also have picture ID. One thing I got rid of was college identification. These college IDs, all they have is a picture, no social security, no address, no birth date, no citizenship, and they have no security features, and they're easily counterfeited. So I think getting rid of the student IDs is something a lot of people wanted to see happen. Same with residency. So currently, come with a bill, a W-2, 1099, to prove that you live where you do. The one thing again is we had people taking their cell phone and said, well, I've got a Verizon bill on my phone. Well, that's not tied to any address. So anything on a cell phone has just now been removed out of as far as residency requirement. And the last thing in proving who you are is citizenship. And that is something that hasn't really been pushed. Sure, you can check a box on your registration form that says, I am a citizen of the United States, but it's never checked. So this way they have to prove that they're a citizen, or they have a birth certificate, or they're, have gone through the process of becoming a citizen in order to be able to vote here. So those three things I think were desired by a lot of the people here in Idaho. But the last thing I really liked was to get rid of affidavits. So if you go in to vote and you don't have your ID, you can sign a paper that says, I promise, I swear, I am the person, John Smith. They give you a ballot. They set your affidavit aside to check it later. But then you voted and it's already in that box, that locked box, with the legal vote. So if you're an illegal voter, you just canceled someone out. And days later, they might find out that John Smith is not a legal citizen, or is not even in the county, and should not have voted. There's no way to retrieve that ballot. So it's just canceled out a valid legal ballot. So that's also in the bill. But those were the main components of it.
But with regards to the verification of someone's citizenship when they go to vote, assuming your bill is enacted into state law there in Idaho, what about driver's licenses, where someone may have obtained an illegal citizen, or sorry, an illegal alien who is not a citizen, has obtained a driver's license, and yet it's a valid driver's license? How would you be able to distinguish whether that person is a U.S. citizen or not a U.S. citizen who somehow got a legal driver's license?
And that's correct. If you have a green card or a visa, you can obtain a driver's license. And so another legislator ran a bill through Idaho Transportation Department, which would actually put an identifier on the license of someone in that status that says non-citizen on the card. Again, that's been over in the Senate. It's probably being held in a drawer, but I think that's a great feature we need to add. So right now, according to the Heritage Foundation, we're like 38th in election integrity.
Wow.
And these are the reasons why. Because right now, there's no way to really address the citizenship issue accurately unless you really have someone to investigate each one of those cases.
It's amazing, considering that most people would imagine that Idaho is and probably actually is, a very conservative state, but the legislature seems that it needs a lot more work to move it in the same direction to catch up with where the people in the state stand.
Well, aside from me leading for a statewide office, we have other good candidates. Priscilla Giddings running for lieutenant governor. She's in the House with me. Christy Zitto is leaving the Senate to go work with the Second Amendment Alliance. So everybody's kind of doing different things, but I will tell you it will be a huge turnover. I would guess half of our legislature, House and Senate, will be flipped, and it needs to be. It has been broken for so long. We have gotten so many good bills. We have a bill, House Bill, I shouldn't say this, 666, and it's appropriately numbered because it deals with pornography in books in libraries. So libraries can get away with peddling these kind of books before our little kiddos, and they're not charged with pedophilia as anybody else would should they expose these books to a child. And this bill is held in the Senate, despite the fact the very graphic pictures of these books that were pulled from these public libraries were shown to the Senate members. They will not take on that issue. So that's very disheartening. And ESG, we just had Glenn Beck come out and talk about this ESG, environment, social, and governance tracking issue, but kind of like a credit score that will now maybe close your banking account or deny you a loan.
And for those that are watching in the state of Idaho, or even outside of the state of Idaho too, but primarily in Idaho, who are watching and want to help out in your campaign, but haven't yet connected with your campaign, what's the best way for them to get involved?
DorothyMoon.com. Go to my website. You can make comment. There's all kinds of links how you can reach out, and I'd like to hear from you. We're in a fight to save our state and to keep Idaho red, despite the fact we have a blue management team. a lot of us are willing to fight and give it all we have this coming election on May 17th.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dorothy Moon. And of course, we wish you the best. And of course, take care and God bless you.
Nice seeing you. Thank you. Bless you too.